Kadosh, Boker Or, Bekiim Bahalacha 3, day 54, Siman Chet, page 105. I sent it on the chat. You have it over there. Inspecting, Halacha Lamed Vav, Halacha number 36. You're inspecting your tzitziot. Technically, one is not obligated to examine one's tzitziot strands to ensure that they are intact and kosher before putting on the talit. Nevertheless, it is practice of the devout. It's very good to examine the strands whenever one is about to recite the bracha on the talit. Says number 37 on the bottom, defining the necessity to examine the tzitzit strands. The Rosh, Rabbi Moshe at the end of the Tzitzit wrote, anyone who fears heaven, so somebody that has Yirat Shamayim, will make sure to examine the tzitzit before reciting the bracha of tzitzit to ensure that his blessing will be valid. If the tzitzit are torn, his blessing might be recited in vain. In his Shuta Rosh, right, in his responsum, he come and he complained about the senseless stringency practiced by some Torah scholars who refrain from wearing talit in public domain on Shabbat. It is true that if the tzitzit are torn and valid one will wear them, causing to be mechal Shabbat, and therefore will be forbidden to wear the talit outside. If this is the case of the scholars' treatise, however, they should have never recited the bracha. Right? He basically said, how do they make a bracha? What's the doubt?
Didn't
1 minute. A blessing recited on an invalid tzitzit is blessing recited in vain. And this is a very grave sin as well. If they examine the tzitzit strands before reciting the blessings to ensure that they are intact, they can also examine them before going outside on Shabbat and then go outside with confidence. You're now a different halacha, Richard, about carrying it. We're not talking about that. 1 minute. So basically, the concept was he's saying, I don't even understand what the problem is. What is their doubt? Their doubt is maybe they're going to be walking around the Shul Rabim, right? And their talit is torn. 1 second. Why didn't they check their tzitzit before making the bracha? They had to make a bracha. So they should have checked their tzitzit. And if they would have checked their tzitzit, they would have known if it's torn or not torn. It is not a common practice to examine one's tzitzit every single time you put on the talit, since one may assume that they have a cheska kashut. Moreover, there is, right, next page, 106, there is little reason to suspect that such an occurrence has taken place. Even if one or two of the loose strands is torn off, the tzitzit is still kosher. Therefore, right, one may say the beracha even without examining it first. The Rishon LeZion commented that it's clear from the Rosh, right, that when he ruled in the Halachot that one should examine the tzitzit before reciting the blessing, he meant that it's proper practice for the Hasidim, basically. Technically, you could always assume that it's going to be kosher. Shulchan Aruch, following the lead of the Tur, called Sarosh, before making the bracha, you should examine the tzitziot, right? And in the Bet Yosef, he explained that although the Rosh testified that this is a common custom not to examine it, he says it is still correct to do so. The Bach comes and he emphasized that the Rosh never implied that it's necessary to do it. He just meant that it's commendable, it's good to do, but you're not obligated to do it. Okay? The Ruch HaShulchan likewise ruled technically there's no obligation to examine the tzitziot, right? And therefore, if someone arrives at synagogue and he finds that the congregation is already in the middle of prayers, right? I'm sure nobody here does that, but fine. He should not bother to examine his tzitzit strands, right, that day. He says the pious practice, meaning, what are you wasting your time? Quickly, you have to run. You already came late. That Rishon LeZion testified that he witnessed several great Torah scholars that did not bother to examine their tzitziot daily. Rav Yosef Satan stated that it was a common custom not to bother to examine the strands beforehand, right, based upon the Rosh. It could be that there was a common custom practicing times of Maran, and for this reason, that's why he actually said yes. Meaning maybe Maran brought down that you should, because that was a custom in his time. But really, like the Rosh, no, they never did it. When there's no reason to suspect, when there is a reason to suspect there's a problem. What happens if there's a reason? Piskei says that if someone knows that his activities might affect the condition of tzitzit strands, he must examine them. Therefore, one must examine the tzitzit after the talit has been laundered or had trekked through thorny bushes or barbed wire. Then they must examine. Why? You just put it in the wash. You have to check them because now you should check them because maybe now there's not more chazak anymore because many times in the wash and all these things it gets destroyed. So there you should check, right, what it is. Okay, next. Okay, wearing several talitot. If someone chooses to wear a number of talit katans, he doesn't have to examine the strands of one of them, right? Or does he have to examine all of them? Shulchan Aruch wrote that the reason we're examining them is not to be guilty of bracha v'tala. But then it doesn't matter then because as long as you made a bracha and one of them is good, then that's going to be okay. Okay. So he says the Mishnah Berurah, our recited Achronim, that says you have to examine each one of the talitot in order to wear it, since it is possible to examine them. So it would be wrong just to rely upon the assumption. What about a talit katan? Because until here we're talking about a talit gadol, which is the regular talis, Ashkenazim say. But what about a talit katan? Right, the tzitzit. So he says, must one examine the tzitziot also in the talit katan? Our custom is never to say a bracha, because our custom is that you say the bracha on the talit gadol, and that's going to be poter the talit katan. So if that's the custom, so therefore, what do you have to do? So he comes and he says, in order to ensure the blessing is valid, it should be necessary only to examine the tzit of the talit gadol, not of everything. So he says, the Halacha Berurah states the poskim debated this issue. He concluded that anyone who follows a stringent opinion gets a special tavola bracha. Yaakov Yosef says that it's commendable to examine even the talit katan, but technically you don't need to. What about on Shabbat? So Ben Ish Chai says that if someone observes the practice of doing it during the week, he should do so on Shabbat as well. His sources Matei Moshe and the Bach right? And Mishabura concur with this. The Bahalacha recommended examining tzitzit on Friday when you're preparing the clothing for Shabbat, right, in the morning. Okay, so the Lachabura also concur with this, and Yakud Yosef as well. Some people custom not to examine tzitzit on Shabbat for a number of reasons. Right, look in the Shulchan Aruch. Yeah, maybe you're going to come and you're going to start tightening them and all these things. What about saying the different psukim when you're examining them? So Yakud Yosef states that some people are accustomed to saying several psukim when they examine the tzitzit. The source of the custom is the Rokeach, the Mishnah Chasidim, Kuratan Yad Aron, the Kavachim Sofer. Although Acharim do not specify this, some people do say this, right? As these instructions are found in several books and also in the Shevet Musar. The Yakud Yosef also added that if a person examining tzitzit is not yet recited the blessing over the mitzvah of Torah study, so then obviously don't do that. Meaning, don't start saying pesukim and you're going to see Birkat Torah. Say Birkat Torah and then do that. What about helping other people? So Chaim Falache commended his late colleague, right, Rabbi Rafael Calamaro, who used to visit all the synagogues and examine the talitot. He would repair any tzitziot that were broken, and he would actually paying for them and doing. Rav Chaim recommended that. He said in every community, a wealthy individual should hire a talmid chacham that he should go around all the synagogues repairing all the talitot. And likewise, someone should sponsor the purchase of kosher tefillin mezuzot for all those who need. Rav Chaim commented that this is the highest form of Zikuya Rabbi. Powerful words. You guys just read that. Just for that, I think you should highlight this entire paragraph and mamash, you send it out. The highest form of Zikuya Rabbi. You pay, because you know why. You're paying a Talmid Chacham that doesn't have money, and you're supporting him. Plus, he's being Mizaker Rabim. And he's being Mizaker Rabim, whether it's going to be Talitot, Mezuzot, Tefillin, all the... So imagine how many Zikui that a person gets. Okay, next halacha. 37. If someone is afraid that if he takes time to examine on the top, right, on the top of 106, if someone is afraid that he takes time to examine the tzitz strands, he's going to miss the opportunity to recite the midah with the tzibur, or he's going to be forced to skip parts of the prayer or the midah, right? It is better just to put it on, don't examine, right? Yes, because he came late. Yes. This is pious thing to do. Likewise, if someone was invited to go up to the Torah, he may quickly put on a talit without examining it. Also, if someone is traveling and he also knows that if he finds something, right, if he finds something wrong with his seat, he will not have no way of repairing them, right, and replacing them. So then he may not put on his talit without examining them because he can't fix it. 38. Once someone has put on the talit and gone up to read from the Torah, he may continue to wear without examining this seat. Meaning, once you put it on and it already had a chazka kashrut, that's it. So he says, Tzilal explained that the obligation to examine was only when you're going to put it on, not for somebody that was already wearing them. In the same way, if someone already has a talit katan, so he says the response to Shabbat that we explained that since the person already recited the blessing when putting on a talit to go up to Torah, there's no longer a basis for examining the tzitz strands anymore. See the halacha berura. Have a wonderful day.